Good morning, everyone. Still a minute early, but if team one's already in the room, feel free to share slides, because you'll be the team going first. And I'll just post the order in which we'll go through the teams in the chat here. So we'll have 8 presentations today. 8 contributions proposals from 8 teams, and we'll start with team number 1 in just a few seconds. Thanks for sharing the screen. All right, it's 10 past. Whenever you're ready, go for it.
Cool, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
So let's get this on the road. So we are group 1. Members are Tom, Ben, Jason, Ryan, and Shrey. And next slide, we propose to work on the Zetler project. Zetler, as you have probably heard already, is a markdown editor for the 21st century. So it's just good for engineers and researchers to write well-structured reports and things like that. You can use LaTeX with it. Next slide. This is the issue that we want to work on. Basically, currently in Zetler, they want you to be able to hover over a hyperlink and have something show up, like a bit of a preview of where that link goes to. So Wikipedia looks like that. When you hover over like the philosopher thing, it gets some preview text. And yeah, that's what we want to work on. Next slide. Yeah, currently Zetler looks like that on the top left. Just got the link twice, which is strange. And we kind of want to make it look like, you know, the GitHub links, which are really cool. They have a big image. They have the domain. Google Docs does some stuff, and that's what we want to do. That's it for me. Jason is muted.
Thank you very much. So I discussed what we would need to do in order to get a contribution accepted. Firstly, while there are no set coding standards or practices clearly outlined within a document in the repository, we must first analyze the existing code base to identify the coding standards for the project. Once identified during our development, we can closely mimic the coding styles and standards that we discovered during analysis, and this can then be verified by running the linter that's within this repository. I will also be testing extensively when developing our contributions. This will ensure that our code will achieve the goals of the enhancement and will assist in the identification of bugs so they can be resolved prior to making a pull request. The repository has a folder named tests. All test files placed in there are run prior to commits. This will allow us to ensure that our code behaves in the way it is expected to and does not break the functionality of the existing code base. Another thing we're going to be doing before making pull requests is holding internal code reviews, ensuring that our code adheres to what we view as acceptable standards in terms of style and functionality. And once our code has been reviewed, we'll graciously accept any criticisms and work to resolve any faults identified in that attempted contribution. We also intend to continue having open communication with the other contributors to the project. This will allow us to develop a rapport with the other contributors, as well as ask for more quick critique on a more regular basis. And that's it from me.
Hi, my name is Shrey. I would like to add a few more points as to what we need to do in order to get our contribution accepted. First off, we shall abide by the rules of open source community, which requires a member to be respectful with other community members, using language which is not offensive, and accepting constructive criticism. A few don'ts are no trolling, no harassment of any form, no disclosure of private information. Next slide, please. Coming to the next step, like since our assigned task is an enhancement to the project features, we would like to follow Agile SDLC model. Throughout the development process, we shall hold regular Scrum meetings, which are led by a Scrum Master. We shall also define our tasks and subtasks, their completion time, and assign them to team members. This shall ensure a strict timeline of our task and that every team member is on the same page. Finally, coming to the last point, change slide, please. The proper documentation would ensure that we have solid reasoning for every development decision we take during the enhancement process. this increases traceability in case something goes wrong in future, or if someone else wants to understand the reasoning behind any of the specific design choice, thus helping us and others avoid any confusion in later stages of the project. That's me. Thank you.
Okay, so these are the challenges we expect to encounter. For the most part, the main issues we expect to encounter relate to the code of the product. This would begin with understanding what Zettlr does and its niche space in the market. From here, we would have to understand how the code actually produces this, and then also understand how other projects have hyperlink previews. We will then have to go into how to produce the code that achieves the same goal, and also have to figure out a good location for this code to be placed. And the final challenge would be to make sure our solution is completely bug-free and 100% secure. In terms of Git and community management, the main problem would be getting our pull request merged successfully. This will be broken down into following all the codes of conduct and ensuring that our product is clean and correct with regards to programming practices and code smells. On top of this, we expect possible issues coming from interacting with a seasoned community of open source programmers, potentially with a low interest in interacting with our group. Additionally, there will be a level of embarrassment. This is the first time for most of us that our code is going to be publicly visible and critiqued, so we expect to have to spend a large amount of time doing final, perfectionist style checks. It should also be noted that there are 5 people for one issue, which might make it seem like some group members are slacking when they really aren't, which leads me into my final challenge, which is intra-group communication and conflict. However, this isn't expected to be too high, as most of us have been in a group before.
With a team of 5 people, distributing the work of a single feature implementation is difficult. It can be distributed into the HTML, CSS, and TypeScript, but this is still not enough. So our current thought is to work in pairs to complete a part. The specific parts will be determined when we research and know how to create the feature. Documentation and code review are also an important part. These can be done as a group to make sure that the entire team is happy with the outcome. The timeline will look like this: research, development, testing, refinement, and pull request. Our current thoughts are to have the first pull request done early May at the latest, with further pull requests after, if they are demanded. And that's our presentation. Thanks for listening.
Fantastic. Thank you. That all sounds good. And I see that there's been some very positive communication on the issue already. So that's good. The project's aware that you want to work on this. Because we're a bit behind schedule already, just one quick question. I'm sure there must be browser-related issues. Have you thought about which browsers to work on, which browsers to test this on, and stuff like that?
We haven't.
So I guess what I'm saying, okay.
We haven't really discussed that yet, but I would assume that we'd have to use a sample of the main few, such as like Firefox, Chrome, maybe Microsoft Edge, stuff like that.
Double check what the project itself claims to support, because that would sort of be the gold standard that would have to work, that your pull request would have to work on as well, right? So if Zettlr, I don't know what Zettlr exactly claims to support, but I'm pretty sure your pull request ideally should support the same. So yeah, just an issue to be aware of, unfortunately, a challenge that comes up in web development all the time. All right, in the interest of time, thank you very much and good luck with your contribution, and we'll hand it over to team number 3. Team number 3 ready to go?
Sorry, just getting it ready now.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay, so our team is doing the JabRef project. So this is an open source project that's cross-platform citation and reference management software. So it helps managers manage references using BibTeX and Bibliotex standards. And it was built in Java in 2003, and it's maintained ever since. So our issue that we're doing is 6197. It's do not store downloaded file if it's already attached. So there's a couple of procedures that we need to go through to look at how we're going to solve that and to actually understand the issue in the first place. So some of the required steps for this is to understand the basic code base and the structure. So that's going to be a really important thing in understanding how the PDF interaction actually works in the first place, and what types of features and where this issue might touch certain files in the code base. Another thing that we need to understand is the submission guidelines, such as the code quality requirements, and use of the Gitter chat to ask any questions to maintainers about the submission process and what's required. Another thing that we've already noticed as well is that our issue already has a partial fix from another contributor in a different pull request that was closed. It's still not resolved apparently, and so that's why we're still working on this. But we really do want to look through this pull request and issue in detail to see kind of what they've done and what they've missed. So doing that. And then, of course, we're trying to determine the code style of the project and pass any of the linting required towards the end. And that includes as well writing any test cases and making sure that that's all up to standard. In terms of challenges, one of the main ones is definitely going to be a lack of Java experience. Most of us in the group don't understand Java like lots and lots. So getting familiar with that and understanding how the whole thing is structured will be very important. Also, the code quality requirements as well. So the linting, that's going to be very important too. And again, that kind of ties into the Java knowledge as well, because there's probably some Java, specificities when it comes to the actual code as well. And then also looking at how to identify solving the problem. That's going to be a big thing because as we've seen in the discussion for our issue, there is a bit of back and forth and a bit of ambiguity when it comes to the what and how they want the problem to be solved. So one of the big things is, what do we determine as a PDF being the same? What is the same? So we really do want to look at that. Another thing is looking at actually the PDF interaction itself in Java. So how do we compare it in the first place through programming? And finally, the last couple of things is we've got a couple of team members on different time zones and the work distribution. So managing that will definitely be a challenge, but it's something that's it's going to be really exciting to be able to try to do some more asynchronous work, so to speak. That leads us on to the work distribution. So we're going to be dividing it into several parts with some pair-style programming. Of course, this will be done asynchronously, so I'm hoping that we can kind of have some documentation that we can maybe pass between the pairs to work on these issues. So the first one is obviously understanding the project structure and code base, and that can then be reported to the rest of the group as well, and they can explain their findings. The other one is obviously understanding the given problem and reproducing the issue. And so trying to get the actual PDF uploading and feature set actually works. And obviously that ties back into the PDF interaction within Java as well. And then the last one is writing the tests with the test suite and then submitting that as a pull request. So in terms of timeline, these are just weeks given from now as an offset. So the first one is to familiarize ourselves with the project structure and layout. The next one will be to start programming and the code quality checks and get all that really familiar. Then we'll review our code as a group and begin writing some new test code as well. And then, of course, we're going to submit it. So some of these will be kind of overlapped as well. I hope that we can kind of get certain things kind of rolling at the same time. Obviously, as I've said, like there's going to be some challenges with distributing the work and trying to get things going. And then after that, yeah, just a review, feedback, and answer any questions from the maintainers and make any appropriate adjustments as needed. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much. That all sounds good. Obviously, try to leave a comment on the issues soon.
Yes,
I
I've
did
already
just double
messaged
check
them.
that.
Yeah,
Good,
absolutely.
Good. I just double checked, so it's the same person who opened the issue and who also closed the pull request attempt earlier this year.
Yep.
So I think he will probably be the main person you'll be interacting with.
Yeah,
I happen to know him personally. He's a really nice guy, Oliver.
Oh,
so that should be good.
Excellent.
But I think he'll probably give you hints on what to do differently.
Yep.
To that previous pull request attempt.
Perfect.
Yeah, I don't think I have any specific. Oh, the other thing I just noticed, you were saying that you'll have to work on how to compare PDF files.
Yep.
In the original issue description, step number 3, he actually points to a specific library. I've never used that library, so I don't know if it works, but I guess they have specific ideas on how it should be done.
Yeah, definitely.
That's,
we were
not to say that it'll be easy, but
yeah, no, exactly. No. We've already got a couple of people working on that and looking into it. So the other thing was we don't want to introduce any libraries. We're not sure yet, but I know that a lot of open source software, they're very hesitant towards having additional dependencies into their project. So, we want to do it as natively as possible within Java if we can. So yeah, absolutely.
Alternatively with libraries that they are already depending on, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah, exactly.
In this case, he's suggesting Guava, which to me seems to suggest that maybe they are relying on Guava already anyway.
Yeah.
But I haven't verified this just now. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll hand it over to team number 5 then.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you. Let me get a screen share up.
Yep, all good.
All right.
So, hey everyone, we are Team 5 and we will be contributing to Python Pigments project. So Pigments is a syntax highlighter written in Python that supports over 500 languages, used in many forums, wikis, and other applications. So you can see from the example below of how this works, you can see that the Python program is nicely colored. It makes it clear for programs to look at and understand, and it looks pretty. So the issue we will be working on is issue number 1740, a Python lexer problem, where numbers that are written as .x is not recognized as a float value. Instead, they are represented as a decimal and an integer. So you can see from the current behavior on the left, where we highlighted in yellow, that a point is tokenized as an operator and 5 is tokenized as an integer. However, it's not an integer, it's a float. So we want it to look like our expected behavior on the right, where 0.5 is tokenized as a float. And yes, so Liam will now go through getting our contributions accepted.
All right, so to get our contribution accepted, we have first claimed the issue by writing a comment of introduction of who we are and that we are working on it. We have read their contribution guidelines, which includes a semi-strict format on how they want their lexer to be written. We have recreated the bug, so we know that that it is an existing bug and hasn't been fixed already. We have forked the repository, and we are next going to be trying to understand the code, understand the bug, we're going to be writing test cases for it. And then after we've fixed it, we'll make pull requests and, of course, fix the bug. This will lead into responding to any reviews on our pull request. Potential challenges for this will first be our familiarity with Python. Several of our group have had no experience with Python, and a few of us have had a very minor experience with Python. So this will lead into us trying to understand the code base. Since we are not too familiar with Python, we'll have a bit of a challenge trying to understand the existing code. We'll also have challenges to write test cases since we also don't understand exactly how it works yet. We expect that getting our pull request reviewed will probably be challenging since we haven't had any existing experience with writing pull requests on open source repositories. And finally, the last challenge would be keeping our code style consistent since they have a certain style that they want us to write in. The timeline that we expect to be doing this is this week we want to be understanding the code and the bug. The following week we'll be writing our test cases. We hope to fix the bug by week 7, and on week 8 have our pull request in and ready for review, and the following few weeks be responding to any issues that may arise on our pull request, following up on the final week of a review. We will be allocating our work to our group members by, we'll mostly be working in our meetings, so we'll all be present during our work times, but for standard allocation, we will all be working on code if it's necessary after we've understood the code, and we will also all be contributing to any reports. Thank you.
Cool. That all sounds good. I see you left a comment on the issue already a while ago. It's good. I mean, in this case, nobody responded to it, but at least everybody now knows that you claimed it first. Regarding, you were saying that it's sort of the first pull request to a public repository for all of you. I think a good strategy for figuring out how to send successful pull requests, and this applies to all teams, not just you, would be to look for other similar pull requests. Maybe you'll find one that does something, reasonably similar that also fixes some bug in the highlighting or something like that. Obviously not the same bug. And just see, what files did they include, what documentation did they include, where were the files, and that sort of sort of thing. What was criticized about their pull request? I think that's something that makes GitHub interesting. You can look at past interactions that this project had, and in this case, they've already received like close to 300 closed pull requests. So I'm sure there must be one that looks fairly similar.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually just saw one here. Fixed highlighting template parameter without name. That looks similar enough. There, I'll post the link here. Might as well benefit from this. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, and good luck for the contribution, of course. And we'll hand it over to team number 7 then, I believe.
Hi, I'm Craig, team 7. We're a team of 6 members. I'm just sharing my screen now. Okay, we are working on Zettler, the Markdown editor, and our issue is number 175, which is a tray icon enhancement to the software. We have decided to break down this issue into our first goal, which will be to get a tray icon working that will provide the ability to put Zettler in the background and without exiting the program. Within the issue, there are some further more advanced features that are suggested, such as being able to add a new note from the tray icon and a really detailed, like a gold-plated option where it would be that the tray menu is fully customizable by the user through a configuration screen. And so our approach is going to be, we'll try the first goal and then we'll add in stretch goals if we are going successful and our merge is accepted by the developers. What we need to do to get our contribution accepted is leave a welcome message on our issue. We have done that already. We have to follow the contribution guide that Zettler has provided. We will create a design and then we'll engage back with the Zettler team to show our design so they can have an opportunity to have feedback and see if they're happy with the direction we're going. We'll have unit testing. We will, in our team, do our coding and we will team review our own work and do approvals within Git. And then after that, we will do a pull request back to the Zettler team, and that will give us an opportunity to look at the Zettler team's comments, and we will address those comments. Then we'll re-raise the pull request, and we will then look at the documentation. The Zettler developer, Nathan, has already given us some guidance on the documentation and what we need to be aware of. The next part is the challenges we expect. We have to learn a new code base, Electron and Vue.js. We may encounter other issues when we're developing. For example, we're adding in a preference, but perhaps there's a bug in the preference system or it doesn't allow us to expand easily. We have a challenge with Windows versus Mac versus Linux in this because each of those systems really does handle tray icons very differently. We have to learn how to build the software and be able to do that on our machine. And a challenge is we could fail to get our change merged. And a challenge engaging with the Zettler developers. How we plan to distribute the work. We plan to fork, as shown here. We will fork the Zettler repository into, we've created a GitHub organization. Then we plan to create a branch for the main issue. And then we will create sub-issues. We will divide our issue up into sub-issues and then share them amongst the team. And we will do pull requests and approvals within our own team, merging back to our branch. And then when we're finally done, we will then propose a pull request back to Zettler. This is our timeline, 12th of April to provide our design to the Zettler organization, 3rd of May to provide our initial code pull request, and then that will give us an opportunity to address comments and then an updated pull request the 17th of May and documentation on the 24th of May. And that's the end of my presentation.
Fantastic, thank you. That looks good. Good to see that you commented on the issue. You got a really quick response. That's good. I think the only thing I'm a bit concerned about, and this isn't your fault, it's a sort of a side effect of this particular issue. It's different operating systems, because it seems like a lot of the functionality will heavily depend on the operating system. So I would probably solve it for different operating systems and different pull requests, and possibly even prioritize one operating system over others. From just quickly going through the issue now, I'm not entirely sure what they are most interested in. I mean, most of the screenshots, or the only screenshot, seems to come from Windows. But yeah, like the issue itself also says that with different Linux distributions, this could become really messy. So are you sort of planning to initially focus on Windows at least?
Yeah, we had a discussion, and we have some developers on Mac, Windows, and we can do a Linux virtual machine. So we were planning to split the work up to different developers on different operating systems. But I acknowledge the good idea of perhaps focusing on one. And Windows would be an obvious choice because it has the strongest tray.
This could probably be something that you could even ask Hendrik as well. So I don't know why his name is Hendrik, but his GitHub name is Nathan, so that's a bit confusing. Same person. But I guess you could also ask the person that you've interacted with what their priority is.
Okay. Thank you.
And similar to the feedback that I gave to another team before, I think it was also about Settler, right? Just double check if they have some official documentation that says which operating systems they support.
Yes.
Because those would be the ones that you should target probably. And there's always operating systems that nobody uses anymore that we know we don't need to target.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Good luck with the contribution, and we'll hand it over to team number 8 then. Anybody here from team number 8? Yep, can see your screen.
Good morning all. My name is Punit Wal, and I would like to welcome you all for today's presentation. The topic that we'll be presenting today is contribution to an open source project. In my team with me, I have Alan, Lee, Salim, and Steve. We have chosen to contribute to Jabref. Jabref is an open source cross-platform citation and reference management software. The name Jabref stands for Java, Alvar, Batata, and Reference. The original version was first released on November 29th, 2003. And the particular contribution that we have chosen to set is issue number 6601. That is the right-click menu for main table header. The ask of this issue is provide a right-click on main table header in order to edit the Vivd columns or the fields, or also provide a link to these preferences. Now I would like to ask Steve to explain how we are going to take, what are the steps we're going to take in order for our contribution to be accepted.
All right, we have 4 big steps, and we already complete the first step, which is establish communication with the leader of the project and notify him or her we want to take this issue, and double check with the core developer, make sure we understand the goal of this issue and understand possible directions to look into the code as a new contributor. Our second step is dig into the code and find solutions for our issue and update our progress to each other and the core developer team regularly. And our third step is when the required functionality is implemented, do enough tests, make sure our solution doesn't create more bugs, and make sure other issues related to this one we are working on can receive maximum benefit from our changes. And also provide comments for the code we implemented and make sure it's easy to read, follow the specific formatting requirements. And our last step is when send a pull request, make sure to provide not only the code, but also test cases and documentations if needed. And next, I'll pass to our next member to talk about potential challenges we have.
I will talk about potential challenges. The first is team communication and collaboration. Our team use Slack and have created WhatsApp groups to discuss the project. Secondly, we should try to combine personal ideas with project goals. We may have some new ideas because of personal interests, And those ideas may be helpful to the project or not. If those ideas can be combined with the project goals, the project may be more efficient. And the third challenge is improvements of various coding issues. Actually, that is the common problems in coding. Yeah.
Okay. The work is going to be distributed into 4 parts. The first part will be creating the physical context menu that will appear when the user right clicks on the column headers. This part is going to be done by Steve, and the second part will be adding the context menu items. Items such as hide title and hide author. This will be done by Punit. The third part will involve actually implementing the functionality behind the second part. That is when the hide title menu hide title menu item is this clicked, the title menu field will disappear. This will be done by Alan. The fourth and the last part is going to be implementing the preference menu item, which will pop up when the preference menu item in the context menu is clicked, and this will be done by me. And now we're going to move to the last part. That will be about the timelines.
Okay, so in terms of timeline, we will start from JavaFX. That's gonna be important because we lack of JavaFX experience. So in the first 1 or 2 weeks, we're gonna work on JavaFX and understand our open source project code. So basically, in the first and second meeting, we will share the learnings. What do we learn? What do we have? How do we do? And then discuss how to implement and cooperate. So actually, we are already at this stage. After that, we're gonna start coding. Then the meeting will focus on solve code issues and continue development. Then after coding, we're gonna review and check bugs. Before our submission, we will also check again and prepare team presentation. Okay, that's all for the Team 8 of contribution proposal presentation. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you. That looks good. Good to see that you commented on the issue. You got a quick response as well with some more links. One thing that I just noticed as I was going through the issue, you saw that, what was this, a bit more than 2 months ago, Oliver mentioned this issue in a different issue. So maybe take a look at that one as well. So there's a reference to the issue that you're planning to work on in the issue that I just posted a link to. And it's something to do about the easy configuration that your contribution would provide. So just making sure you're aware that there's some other related discussion on this happening in a different issue as well. Obviously, if you think you should chime into this discussion, there's no limitations as to which issues you're allowed to comment on here. So if you think it makes sense to leave a comment there as well, you could obviously do that. But yeah, other than that, I think that all looks good. I don't think I have any specific questions. So thank you for the presentation. Good luck with the contribution, and we'll hand it over to team number 10 then.
Right. Okay. Let me just share screen. Give us a sec. Here we are.
Yep, all good.
Is it F5? Okay. So, shall I start? We are group 10 and we have 4 members. We've decided to contribute outside the selected projects given by Christoph. So we have chosen Core Utils Rust. This project is a translation project where the core utils of Linux commands such as ls, cd, rm, cat are translated into the programming language Rust. So what is Rust? Rust is a programming language designed for speed, safety, and performance, focusing on parallelism. It was developed by Mozilla Research in 2010, and it has a mascot called Ferris, which is like the crab here. And Rust users refer to themselves as Rustaceans. So here are some examples of where Rust is used. So like Mozilla Firefox, Google Fuchsia, Discord, Mozilla Azure. Yes, it's me out.
Okay, so what contributions are we planning to make? So our first issue that we commented on actually got stolen, unfortunately. So we've chosen a different issue. You can get the next slide. So our new issue is similar to the first one. It is a move from GetOps to Claps, but instead of a new line, the new line core utils, it's a TR, which is translate. So TR is a part of core utils, and it just prints to standard out the translated or deleted characters that you want to input. GetOps and Claps are libraries that are used for argument passing. And why this issue was chosen is it's marked with good first issue, and because the issue is quite isolated, you don't have to understand the entire repository. You just need to understand your side of it. And it's also easily completable within the time frame.
All right, so in order to get our contribution accepted, we will need to also claim the issue. Unfortunately, our first claimed issue was stolen, but nevertheless, we still have to claim our new issue. So in order to become assigned as a contributor to the issue, a pull request must be made. And before we submit a pull request, we need to closely follow the format provided by other collaborators. And in fact, the maintainer wants all contributors to run Rust formatter on their code before submitting. On to the next page. So Core Utils Rust has a fairly strict guideline that we need to follow, which is seen by the top right corner. And also, in order to get the pull request accepted, a checklist with varying requirements must be completed. So in each issue, the maintainer provides test cases that we need to pass before submitting. These checklists each check the same set of tests, but they are run on different types of machines. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see that well, but like there are various different builds of the Linux machine that we need to pass. And then once we have submitted a pull request, we'll need to be open to any feedback and changes that the maintainer or other contributors may give. Next slide. So one of the first challenges that we will be encountering for this project is that we are all new to Rust language. Yeah, and another thing we need to do is become familiar with the core utils GNU implementation of the translate function. And also we need to understand GetOps and Claps and understand how GetOps can be translated into a Claps version. So there isn't a one-to-one translation from GetOps to Claps, so we need to find the equivalent of a GetOps argument parser, what the equivalent is in CLAPS. The code is also required to be consistent with other contributors. And lastly, from observing other pull requests, we noticed that a lot of contributors have some issues with rebasing with the .lock file, which is especially difficult when you have a conflict with a .lock file because you are not allowed to manually change these conflicts. And on to the next slide.
My bad, I was muted. So our timeline is really, really short and strict since the issues and projects are in high demand. And as Matthew mentioned, our previous issue actually got sniped or stolen. So we hope to finish this issue and submit a pull request by the end of the week at most. I would say just because after you write a comment, as in after you finish the work and you submit a comment and a pull request, Sylvester's really, really quick in responding. So I would say like at most, yeah, we do have 1 week to actually get the issue done and then submit a pull request and work on any changes if there are any changes. But our timeline is will be done as shown from the presentation, where we need to understand what the project is, understand what core utils for the translate function is, learn a bit of Rust, understanding its style and formatting, and then we assign tasks from there. And we've actually already started the issue. We've actually met up and started working on it. And I would say, yeah, like because our timeline is really, really short, so we're trying to complete this as soon as possible. And I would say, like, honestly, we've actually finished the issue. We've actually met up, got everything done, and Sylvester's actually approved of the thing we've done. Moving on to the next slide. So when we met up, we basically just look at documentation together and start learning Rust. And after we completed the task, right, basically what happened was they provided their own test cases to run. So we just ran through our code against the test case. And once everything passes, we submit a pull request. But during that stage as well, we're actually working together using pair programming to solve the issues or any bugs that we encounter as we were testing the code. And then after we submit a pull request, whenever there were any changes that needed to be made, we actually just fix them as soon as possible. And yeah, we've pretty much completed the work already. And that's all from us, I would say.
All right, thank you. The first successful pull request from this course. That's always good. Are you planning to do any more work on the project, or do you think you sort of front-loaded SBI this semester and you'll focus on other courses for the rest now?
Well, I think maybe every now and then we'll probably head back and just check and just maintain what we wrote, just in case something does go wrong. And I think it's always good to keep like good contact with the maintainer in case, they spit on us. Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah, if there's another easy issue that you see, feel free to contribute to another one. But yeah, I think that's a success story. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. We'll hand it over to team number 11 then. Sorry, everyone. We will be running a bit late today.
Hi, Christoph. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep, I'm trying to show my screen.
And while I'm talking to team 11, your Slack channel is very quiet.
Oh, because we have been using WeChat, so.
Okay, keep in mind that part of the assessment is based on your communication on Slack.
Yeah, we'll definitely shift to the Slack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes. Go for it.
Right. Morning, everyone. We are team 11. We'll be contributing to Zettler as well, which is a Markdown editor with plenty of nice features. Helps the user to write professionally and efficiently. The issue we are going to work on is number 1672, which is funded when user creating a new file, and the whole file is automatically selected, including the Markdown extension. The enhancement would simply be to not select the extension. So when you're making a new file, you can instantly type a file name only. The contribution steps we are going to have is to first read through and understand the whole source code. On top of that, we can locate the file where this issue occurs. Next, we will be focusing on setting up the environment and get familiar with JavaScript, since not all of us have background with it, especially framework like Node.js for this project. Then we will determine the solution and get it implemented. After that, we will do some function tests to check the reliability of the solution. Then we will do code review before pull request and keep iterating this process to make sure there's no more bugs. Even though the issue seems to be relatively easy to fix, but there's still some challenges for us, since that's actually the first time we are contributing to an open source project in GitHub. So we might find difficulty to understand the source code. We might not be able to locate the issue file as well. We might also have different opinions on how to solve the issue, because different members have different ideas. And also, it happens to eventually brings more bugs when you're just trying to fix one, which might not be accepted by the project owner. Next, to distribute the work, Yuna and I will focus on coding. Ruoyu will do the test, Yixuan will review all our work, and Maoxuan will work on documentation. For the timeline, we are planning to get everything done in 4 weeks. Firstly, we will analyze the issue and set up environment. Then we will do development in second week. Next, we will test our code and make sure there's no more bug in week 3. Then we can do code review and pull request in last week, which we think left enough time for the project owner to review our work. And also we have already commented down below that issue 2 or 3 days ago, I believe, but haven't get any response yet. So, and the issues has been opened on January 22. All right, that should be all. Any questions?
All right, thank you. That does all look good. You commented on the issue. Yeah, it looks like nobody else is working on it at the moment. I guess a similar question that I've asked a few other teams already as well. I guess to some extent, the functionality of the pull requests that you're planning to work on will depend on the operating system. Are you planning to test it on different operating systems?
I think that works on is cross-platform, so should be working on different operating system. But we mostly using the Windows. So. Yeah.
Right. I like that you said it should work. Usually, these sorts of things.
Excuse me, I'm another team member of this group, and we do have different platforms. We have Windows, we have MacBook, and we have Ubuntu, which is a Linux system. So I think that we will plan to test on the 3 platforms. That's our plan.
Yeah, that sounds good. And similar to what I said to other teams already, double check which operating systems and which operating system, distributions, versions, and so on, they officially support. And to the extent possible, make sure to test it on those.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it just works cross-platform, but I've been doing this long enough to know that, there are always problems like that, especially when it comes to like file names. And I know your issue is related to file names. All right. Good luck with your contribution. Apologies again that we're running behind schedule, but we'll hand it over to the last team now, number 16. And I promise you, you will go first at the end of the semester when we do presentations about how the contributions actually went.
Thank you. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
So over to you.
We'll find out. Cool. So I'm Basil. I'm representing Team 16, and our issue is also on the repository JabRef, which is a citation and reference management tool. It just pretty much helps you keep track of the sources and references you're using for a paper or research you're writing, and 93% of it is in Java. So for our issue, it's number 6148, and for which we have to create an icon picker. And there are a few interactions in the program where the user will have the opportunity to enter an icon. However, to do so, they'll need to type in the name of the icon directly. And there is no user interface for this sort of functionality. So we'll be attempting to implement what you see on the right here, which is just a UI and an icon picker. So to get a contribution accepted, the first thing we need to do is understand the high-level architecture of the repository. And there are just three main layers. The first is the model, which is the center of the architecture and represents the most important data structures. So it has to do with the database, the entries, and the events. And it only has a little bit of logic attached. The logic is responsible for the reading and writing, importing, exporting, and manipulation of the model. And it's often structured as an API that the GUI can call and use. And when it comes to the graphical user interface, it just displays what's in the other layers, and only the GUI knows what the user and their preferences are and can interact with them to help solve problems. So based on the guidelines, once we understand this sort of high-level architecture and the basics of pull requests and writing test cases, we can start contributing. And according to their process, there are 5 steps involved, which is follow the formal requirements, which mainly consists of authoring credits, writing test cases, and general good practice around commit messages. It helps the maintainers sort of give supportive feedback rather than just stating the obvious. And then we create a pull request, wait for feedback for the developers. Once their feedback has been addressed, we can wait for their green flag, and the pull requests will be merged. So when it comes to challenges, it seems like a common trend, but Java's pretty unfamiliar for most of us. At and outside of uni, we have relatively little experience with it. And since it's such a strict language in terms of its structures and patterns, it might be quite difficult for us to get our heads around the code to begin with. And this is further burdened by the fact that the repository is quite old and well contributed. So there'll be a lot of code for us to sort of sort through. And there could also be potentially some bad practice or errors we need to figure out and manage as well, although this is probably unlikely. And since we're working with a UI component, we are effectively working with 2 components of the architecture, the logic and the GUI. So we have the added complexity of making sure these communicate with each other as well. And we may also need to work with an icon or emoji API, whether that be Google Material icons, or if they already have icons they're working with, which could also further complicate our project. So in terms of work distribution, we are going to use an agile approach where we make a list of all the tasks which need completion and prioritize them and allow members to pick a task in the highest priority order. We'll assign due dates to each one and conduct meetings to update the team on the progress and completion of each task. Team members can request to work individually or in pairs if their task is a bit too much for one person. And we'll self-assign our own tasks. So in terms of the timeline, in week 5, we're just going to focus on planning and understanding the repository, learning about the code and past contributions to our issue. And based on your advice earlier, we might look at just general pull requests to see how they're generally formatted and sort of really understand what we're working with. Then we can start sort of figuring out potential solutions to our problem and giving each of us something to work on the following weeks. Then if everything goes well, the next few weeks we'll start developing. And then if that goes well, we can start writing test cases and creating pull requests and hope it gets approved. And yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is that quite a few people have been commenting on the issues, saying that they want to work on it. You guys being the last one of those. So if I see correctly, so there's somebody who wants to do it for Google Summer of Code. Well, I think I just posted the link actually the other day on my uni, right? So that won't start for another few weeks, I think. So you could possibly get in ahead of that person. And
what will happen if someone sort of,
I think in the end, only one pull request can be merged addressing the same thing, because chances are you'd be doing conflicting things. From a course assessment point of view, I wouldn't hold that against you. I realize that pull requests get rejected for all sorts of random reasons, and while we hope that for this course, many pull requests will get merged, that's not going to be an assessment criteria unless there's obviously something wrong with the pull request, and that's why it was rejected. So from that perspective, I don't think there's anything to worry about. It's more, it might leave a little bit of a bad taste with the open source project. I guess Tobias pinged the other person asking whether they have started to work on it 5 days ago, and nothing's happened. I mean, as you can imagine, there's also lots of people in open source who just comment on issues saying that they'll do it, and then you never see them again.
Yeah.
Maybe just keep an eye on it.
Most of the issues were... Yeah, for sure we'll do. If we comment on it regularly, it might look like we're a bit more committed than some of the other people.
Exactly, I think that's what I'm thinking as well. Yeah, and unless the project maintainers come back to you based on your comment from yesterday and say that, sorry, somebody else took this already, I think just assume it's your issue and see how it goes. Obviously something to keep aware of, but I'm sure you're keeping an eye on that issue anyway. Cool.
Yeah,
I think that's the only comment I had. Everything else sounds good. All right. Thanks, everyone. Sorry for the timing. Maybe we'll do the final presentations in week 12, actually distributed over 3 sessions instead of 2. Maybe 2 is a bit too much, or too many teams to do it in 2 sessions. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy your Easter break, and we'll see you again a week from now. All right. Bye, everyone, and good luck with your work on the open source projects. See you next week.